Hello and welcome to the Field of Streams podcast for Friday, April 29th. I'm your host, Dylan Higgins, joined by my clean-shaven co-host, Brad Johnson. Brad, how you doing?
Pretty good. I wasn't sure you noticed it because you didn't say anything while we were setting up.
Oh, sure.
Wanted to
Yeah,
see if anyone commented.
yeah. Brad, how's it going?
I'm good. Same old, same old. Lots of DFS and regular fantasy and writing about fantasy and yep, I live
Well,
baseball. It's good.
there you go. Yeah, especially in season. We're also joined by our guest this week, Rudy Gamble of Razzball.com. Rudy, how you doing?
Doing well. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're glad to have you. I've definitely known you for a while, big fan of your site, and you guys have been getting more involved in DFS stuff, and I wanted to make sure you could come join us on the show and also talk about this Streaminator you've been working on, which is pretty interesting. I played with it some last night. Will you tell us more about it, more from your mouth than mine?
Yeah, no. You want me to talk about it now, or we'll bring
Sure.
it in?
At least what it is.
Yeah. So what we have on Rasball is tools both for the Roto person and the DFS. So the Streaminator and the Hittertron, they're kind of two related to each other, but I guess for this case, it's just Streaminator only is relevant to this call. Streaminator projects out the next 7 to 10 days worth of starts. So you've got all your major stats it's projecting out, and then I have a 5x5 12-team roto dollar value. So instead of just seeing a whole bunch of stats, you could just sort by the dollar value to find out guys that are worth streaming. We also we co-run like 80 leagues, so I use the player ownership from there. So you don't have to, so obviously Chris Sale is going to be like number 1 or number 2. You sort by less than 80% on the Streaminator owned, and then you start kind of being able to find guys that you can pick up in your league.
That's all pretty cool. Yeah, like I said, I was trying to use it, and it was overwhelming, but in a good way, just because it does so much. But I'm sure we'll be looking at it today. It's Friday. We're doing this DFS show for the 14 contests going on tonight. I figure we'll probably be able to ignore the Cubs game in the afternoon. Doesn't fit most DFS stacks. But looking at all these tonight, and yeah, we'll be able to use that. That'll be helpful. Check that out, get to know a little bit more about it. But I think our biggest news came out last night. We at least have to address, it's not that DFS relevant, but D. Gordon gets suspended. Everybody has these jokes about him not being the typical guy that you think, gets associated with steroids and whatnot. But to me personally, it just says that you never know. We don't really have a clue of not only who's using and who isn't, but what it does. But Brad, do you have any opinions on it? And then, yeah, how's this affecting your DFS stacks or even your fantasy teams?
Well, in reference to him being a unconventional ped user, uh, it it's not always about like getting huge, bulking up, hitting home runs. It's also about durability, lasting long into a season, and getting to the next level. We don't know how long he's been doing this. There are ways around the drug testing policies. It could be that he's been effectively dodging in the past. Could just be something new that he's doing. Maybe addressing an injury that he's trying to get by. It's hard to gauge in that level why he was using and how long he's been. In terms of what the Marlins are going to be doing, a lot more Derek Dietrich, and that's going to be good for DFS owners. He's quite cheap, a really good righty masher. Disappears completely against lefties, but he won't start against them. And yeah, he's going to be someone you can plug into the lineup starting today.
Yeah, I like Derek Dietrich. Matt always likes Derek a lot. Rudy, do you have any opinions on D. Gordon? Did this hit you close to home, close to your heart at all, or any hot takes?
No, well, yeah, D. Gordon's not on any of my teams this year. He's on Gray's, my colleague Gray Albright's NL Tout team, so that's like a massive stomach punch. But it's always surprising when these things happen. And to Brad's point, I think for this to happen to a speedster like him's actually shouldn't be as surprising as it is, because I think the hardest thing in baseball is to steal bases 6 months of the year. To play 158 games and have the spring in your step to be able to steal is really tough. You see these guys, stolen bases, peak early. And I think this is a reason that I think the PEDs probably help for that more than power, where we see guys in their 30s retain their power, but
Sure.
you don't see guys who aren't named Ricky retaining that speed much into their 30s. I mean, when a guy like Carl Crawford, who was probably as good a base stealer as there was 10 years in his 20s, basically is non-existent after that signed that contract. It just shows like there's no one really immune to it. So yeah, I mean, maybe Coco Crisp would be playing a bit more if he was on this stuff. He was one of the few guys. He was one of the few guys that was able to actually improve. Take advantage of the fact that as you get in your 30s, you get smarter with pitch recognition. You learn how to pull a ball down the line for homers. Coker's had some decent years, but he's been brutalized by injuries the last couple of years.
Yeah, I think of the elite base stealers of the day. It was definitely from like 10 years ago. It's definitely Carl Crawford and like Jose Reyes, who also slowed down a fair amount too. I agree. It's hard to stay that fast.
Yeah. I wish if he would have slowed down, he might be actually in the league right now.
Yeah. So that's D. Gordon. I agree that Derek Dietrich is pretty interesting in a lot of formats and in TFS. Also want to remind listeners that we are doing this live broadcast. And we have a chat going as well over on Fangraphs. So if you have questions, if you want to speak up and interact, either picks that you like that we didn't pick, or just questions you got for us, we can answer them live as part of the podcast. And if you're listening to the audio in the future, you're missing out on the Friday morning video broadcast, but it goes pretty uninterrupted for you. All right, let's go ahead and get to things for Friday for DFS. Again, we're going to go ahead and ignore the Cubs game. It's Aaron Blair going to Chicago, facing off against John Lester, which is interesting. It sounds like a fun game. I like the day baseball, but not really going to fit our DFS slate. Let's look at the other 14 matchups. As usual, we start at catcher. Brad, I'll start with you. Did anybody stick out to you at catcher specifically? We've got a lot to pick from, but who are your favorite matchups for Friday?
Yeah, so there's actually a lot of good catching options today. I'll stick with 4, and I'll pass it off to you guys. A little bit of a sample from the different brackets. Buster Posey, very cheap on both formats today. 3,400 on FanDuel, and I think 3,700 on DraftKings. He's up against a lefty, Steven Matz. Matz obviously a fairly good pitcher. Not someone who's elite by any means, so with Posey at this price, I don't think you need to avoid him. Definitely one of the more interesting matchups of the day. Also liking Yasmani Grandal today against Cesar Vargas. Vargas, kind of like best I can tell, he's a pitch-to-contact ground ball guy. It doesn't really match up with his minor league stats, but I don't really foresee a lot of strikeouts coming out of him in the majors from what I saw in the debut. Maybe could be a Jaime Garcia type as an upside, but I wouldn't count on that at all. For today, I'd be looking to see some good production out of every one in the Dodgers lineup. Also liking Jonathan Lucroy today up against lefty Adam Connelly. Lucroy has the long-running platoon splits. Not so much last season and the start of this year, though. So I could see reasons why you might think the past stats aren't as indicative as what you can expect now. Even so, he's cheap on FanDuel at 2,800, and so I'd look for him there. And then bargain basement guy, Derek Norris. He's up against Alex Wood, who's looking a little shaky this year, very inconsistent. And Norris has the long-running platoon splits as well, so it could be a good play in Los Angeles.
Yeah, I love Norris against lefties, and I agree. I even have Wood on a team, and it's been tough because he has not been doing well. So if you believe there's something wrong there, I like Norris for sure. And I like Lucroy because I think I'm going to be picking a lot of other right-handed Brewers today too. And so that could be a good matchup with Conley. Rudy, you have any opinions on those guys? And then anybody else at catcher that you liked that Brad didn't mention?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 2 picks I'm liking at catcher. I'm liking Yan Gomes. He's facing a lefty, and Adam Morgan, a relatively inexperienced pitcher. I kind of like Morgan, but at Philadelphia, nice hitter's park. I'm liking Gomes there. The other guy not mentioned, Posey's always great. It's kind of more philosophical if you want to spend that much on a catcher. I do like the fact he's facing a lefty, although Matt's is a little bit better than your average lefty. The other catcher I like is whoever plays in Colorado against Robbie Ray in Arizona.
Okay.
I think it's going to be tough. Hundley is the general starter right now. I think the gamble there is he might be sitting today. He's not going to play. He's probably going to take off today or tomorrow. So it might be Garneau or Walter. So I'm not sure who they're going there, but that's also a guy, something as lineups post, look out who's going to play against Robbie Ray.
Nick Connelly is a favorite on this podcast for sure. He's been awesome at Coors Field, and this is away from Coors, but I feel like the only other place in the National League that I like about, or even close to as much, would be Arizona. And if he likes Coors, that he'd be okay in Arizona. I like that. He also has the reverse thing where he's preferred fellow righties, but Robbie Ray has such a problem with right-handed hitters that I think that he'd be fine too. So it's not the conventional place for Nick Connelly for me, but I still really like it, to be honest. And I'd like to see Robbie Ray figure it out, but he hasn't yet. So I definitely like that. I had two catchers you guys didn't mention. Brad, how do you not have Francisco Cervelli getting Dan Straley?
I absolutely am in on it. I was just going for some other picks, some guys a little more upside. Cervelli's always just a lovely pick for high floor production. Definitely someone to target in like pretty much every head-to-head or a 50-50 type scenario, because you're going to get something out of him. It's almost never that he produces a flat-out zero. Again, I like the matchup. It's in Pittsburgh, and there's some guys who I think might have power potential today at catcher.
I remember I used to like Dan Straley. Dan Straley used to be interesting, but even with the Reds, and we haven't seen it in a while, and especially that Reds bullpen, just in terms of Cervelli, like that's a good matchup for him. Rudy, did you have something on Cervelli?
Yeah, I was going to, say what Brad was alluding to, that the challenge is you've got Cervelli at Pittsburgh. I mean, it's home, but he's still in a bat-hitting park, and he doesn't have the platoon advantage.
Yeah.
It's tough to know. I find, like, with the salaries, it's tough to, figure out exactly how much is impacted by recent games. But the fact that Cervelli's stats are probably helped a little bit by recent stint in Colorado.
Yeah. Yeah, every once in a while we definitely got to figure out what the heck, especially between a couple major sites, like why some are way high and way low, which can be, good things for you. Posey, it's a little low because he's getting a tough lefty, but it might still be worth it. The only other one I had is Stephen Vogt getting Mike Fiers, and I want to like Mike Fiers, but it's been not great so far, and Stephen Vogt's been fine. So if you want to basically hope that or pick against Fiers who's been struggling, I think Stephen Vogt would be fine there.
I think Fiers is one of those. Oh, I was going to say Fiers is one of those guys that he gives up homers.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
He's kind of like he's pretty similar to Pineda. That the Ks and walks look pretty good, but when he misses, it tends to be in the zone.
Yeah, so it would not shock anybody if Stephen Vogt hits a homer, and I'll have a few other Oakland A's too. But I mean, I like Fiers. I want him to do fine. I'm not that worried about that lineup, but there's a few spots where it'll be okay. All right, first base is the land of way too many options as usual, and in a big slate like this, we could, pick 12 of them, I'm sure. But Brad, who are your top couple favorites at first base, either mainstream ones or under the radar guys?
Well, you hinted that you're thinking of a lot of right-handed Brewers today. I'm on the same page. I like Chris Carter today. Against Connelly. And Connelly's not a guy I really expected to be targeting going into today. But looking over the numbers, I think the Brewers stacks can be pretty tough for him in general. He's going to have a lot of good righty bats to get through. And being at Miller Park, a more challenging park than Connelly's really experienced so far. Definitely one of the best for power in general in the league.
Yeah, I like a lot of Brewers against lefties, and it's not even I think the Brewers lineup is great. It's just I like a lot of matchups that show up in that lineup when you do that.
Yeah.
So He's on my list. Who else you got?
I like Lucas Duda at home today against Jake Peavy. Peavy's not looking good at all this year. I think he's a guy who can go out and exploit with comfort. And Duda's running pretty well after a cold stint to start the season. He's still a little hit or miss in general, but when he hits, it's a home run, and it's going to help carry your lineup. The downside there, Giants bullpen's kind of okay. Not anything to really be terrified of, but if PV does make it late into a game, he'll have a little more trouble actually producing for you. Still nothing I'd really steer clear of, and his price on FanDuel is really good at 3,300.
Yeah.
Also like Miguel Cabrera, who's just kind of underpriced in general on both sites. Still not the cheapest player out there, but so talented. Seems to be back on track. The last 4 games, I think he has something like, 10 or 9 hits in like 15 plate appearances, or maybe 19. It's a lot of hits, some hitting for power too, a couple home runs, a couple doubles in there. So it looks like he's back.
Yeah, and it's hard to ever count him out. I think he's on a tear. He gets Phil Hughes, and there's no reason he can't do fine against Phil Hughes.
Hughes is a strike thrower, he can really take advantage of.
Yeah. Rudy, anybody jump off the page for you at first base that you're excited about for Friday?
Yeah, I second Miggy, and I am surprised how low he's priced, which screams to me, maybe an over reliance on last 30-day data in the salaries. I like Chris Carter. I agree on that one. The guy who I'd go with the super bargain basement and definitely is my best dollar per point play is Justin Bauer.
Yes.
At Milwaukee. Milwaukee is getting there as maybe like a top 3 homer park. Zach Davies doesn't scare anyone. And they tend to have a lot of righties in that lineup. It's not going to be helped with Gordon gone. So I feel like Bauer gets nice protection there, usually surrounded by some mix of Stanton and Ozuna. It'll also be interesting to see what happens with that lineup with Gordon gone. Does everyone, if it was up to me, I'd probably just move everyone up a one and have Yelich maybe hitting 1 or 2. So I like Bauer as a cheap play. I also like Napoli. It's another one where it's making out to be a bit of a Cleveland stack for me against Morgan with having Gomes and Napoli. But I like him as well. Always like Napoli against lefties.
Yeah, I had both those Cleveland guys written down. I agree. I like those. If you like Nick Hundley going to the desert, do you like Mark Reynolds? Mark Reynolds has hit fine for the Rockies so far, and it's right in lefty for him.
No, I do have him in on 1 or 2 roto teams going today as a stream. I like him. One of the things that with Hundley, I think his price is depressed a bit only because he missed some time. Mm-hmm. I probably have a backtrack on what I said before and say that the reason why Colorado guys on the road, besides the long, scene where they have the kind of the letdown of leaving in Coors where they actually have to face curveballs that move, is they tend to be priced too high. So I like Reynolds there. I think Napoli is pretty much the same play as Reynolds, but probably at a better bargain.
Sure, that makes sense. I've said a lot on the show that it's hard for me to go cheap at first base just because it's somewhere you kind of need to get your points. And if you want to take a punt or get sneaky at catcher or at shortstop, that's one thing. But at first base, I feel like I usually want to spend the money. So I have guys like Adrian Gonzalez getting Cesar Vargas should be fine. I have Joey Votto getting Juan Nicasio if you want. I'm okay with that. I have Jose Abreu getting Mike Wright. Those are all just big sluggers that have good matchups, and they're not creative, but those are good places to go for points on Friday. I like Chris Carter. I like the guys you had for sure. The only other one that I wanted to mention, and it's weird to talk about as a first baseman, but depending on your format, he might be there. It's Will Myers gets Alex Wood, and so far so good this year for Will Myers. He likes to hit lefties. That's the platoon advantage for him. There's a number of Padres that can hit lefties. Starting with Derek Norris, like we said, and it's at Dodger Stadium. I guess it's a better place than Petco to hit. Still not exciting, but if you believe that Alex Wood's troubles are significant, and then maybe Will Myers could do fine. I prefer him in the outfield if I can get him there, but he's been playing first base and could qualify there for you depending on your format. And he's put himself in the conversation with the way he's hit. There's still a lot of talent, and he's still pretty young. So, personally, I'll probably go with more of a rock like Votto or Adrian Gonzalez or Chris Carter. But he's definitely an option there, depending on how you set your format. Brad, did you have any first baseman that can't be forgotten before we move on?
I think we can move along. Justin Bour is the one guy I wanted to make sure we mentioned just because he's buried in the bargain column.
Yeah, I like that too. Rudy, I'm going to put you on the spot at second base. Going to let you go first. Who do you like at second base? It was admittedly a little thin for me.
It is thin. I mean, I think if you're going to go premium there, I think Cano is the play. Mm-hmm. The matchup's solid. I don't think it's a tremendous bargain, but Medlin's probably going to only go 5 innings. You're going to get into that bullpen. So I like Cano. I'd say if you're going for the upside cheap dong play, I think you're going with a Scoop, or I never know if it's Scoop or Shoop.
Scoop,
actually.
Yeah.
Which answers never would have guessed. I don't believe it.
So I'll learn how to pronounce his name. But I like him against Rodon. You're getting the platoon advantage. You're playing in Baltimore. Decent chance you're going to get a 0 there. But I like his chances at extra base hits. Coghlan, who's struggled this year, who's a little bit homer prone. And I kind of like Coghlan as a cheap play as well. He's priced real low. And maybe the third guy would be Starlin Castro. He's got the platoon advantage. He's facing Henry Owens, who really struggled with control his first outing, and he's playing at Fenway. So those would be kind of the ones that I'm flagging right now.
Yeah, I had Starlin. I like that. I also had DJ LeMahieu getting Robbie Ray. DJ LeMahieu is not that inspiring and doesn't have that greatest splits. And again, away from chords like that, the only reason I like it is because it's Arizona. It's not as good, but I'm still fine with it. And Robbie Ray struggles with righties so much that I think that LeMahieu is okay. It's not that exciting. I know, Brad, we mentioned, and I'll be with Derek Dietrich. If he's taking over the starting job, it's a good place to start as he gets Zach Davies. So it's a good matchup for him. Zach Davies, again, has not done much. So I assume you're ready to go, Derek Dietrich, on day one today?
Yeah, so the only thing is both sites have him not as a second baseman, even though it's his natural position. He's third base on FanDuel and third base outfield on DraftKings. So, you can plug him in at any of those spots. Unfortunately, if you wanted to use a deep Marlins stack, you won't be able to use Prado and Dietrich on FanDuel. I probably didn't want to do that anyway, but if that was something that came to mind, it's not an option.
Yeah, that would make it tough. Like Dietrich, apparently not at second base. The only other second baseman I had is if you want to pick against Phil Hughes with the Tigers, we already talked about Miggy. They're mostly right-handed and they like to hit lefties, but I'm not worried about Phil Hughes. And personally, when I have a stack like this where I know I want to pick against a pitcher, but I don't know who exactly to go with, because I think they'll all score runs, but I don't know who has the best one. Sometimes I like to go with the leadoff guy, because I think that he's going to get driven in, and I don't know exactly by who. And I think Ian Kinsler can do fine against Phil Hughes. It's not left-handed, but it's fine. And I don't know who's behind him is going to drive him in, but I think somebody will. And so if I just want a general guy, especially in a thinner position like this, that I think can be a part of the run scoring, I want the leadoff guy. I want Kinsler. He's fine. So I think Kinsler or Hughes would be okay. Brad, would you consider Ian Kinsler?
Yeah, definitely. There's potential for a Tiger stack today that probably won't be terribly popular and still could go off on you. I seem to recall JD Martinez is pretty cheap. You can continue to try to bet on Justin Upton, who's been cold, but still a good player. Yeah. And then we already talked about Miggy. So there's guys out there. V-Mart's a catcher on FanDuel still. You got your options if you want to try to target Phil Hughes and his strike throwing.
Yeah. Did you have any other second baseman we didn't get to?
A couple I'd mention. Neil Walker, running very hot these days, homering all over the place. Generally, he's running so hot that I'd stay away from him, except Jake Peavy is so exploitable that I'll stay on the bandwagon for today. Probably about time to start edging away from him, though, as his price continues to creep upwards. And then Brian Dozier against Michael Fulmer. Could be an interesting one. Fulmer has proven to get a lot of strikeouts and a little bit homer prone in the minors. So I don't have a good scouting report on him, really. Just kind of general stuff that anyone can Google. And from what I can gather, it's possible that he's someone who's just going to throw maybe a few too many fastballs over the plate. Dozier's going to be looking to turn on one, and if he gets the right pitch, it could go far.
Yeah, between him and Sean Manaea, it's kind of cool debuts, but these top prospect debuts are always kind of come with big question marks. Where you're like, you kind of want to pick them because they're inexperienced, but you're also like, I don't know what to do here. They're question marks, I feel like, is the best way to put it. There's not a lot of confidence there. Anybody else at second base, Brad, before we move on?
I think that covers the gist.
Okay, you want to get us rolling at third base?
Well, we mentioned Dietrich.
Yeah.
Good pick today. Very cheap on FanDuel, $2,200. He was more on DraftKings. I didn't write down the price, but it was enough that I didn't feel inclined to make room for him.
Mm-hmm.
Also like some of the pricier options today. Always happy to use Josh Donaldson against a lefty, even when it's a good one. So he's up against Drew Smyly today, and prices crept down enough to be affordable. He's been really expensive for most of the year, and now he's just normal expensive. Same goes for Nolan Arenado up against Robbie Ray. Another good one to pick if you're looking for pretty consistent big-time production.
Yeah, I like both of those. I love Josh Donaldson. I'm kind of worried about Drew Smyly just because I like Drew Smyly, but that's a start I can see. Yeah, I can see that going a few ways. We'll talk about Smyly more later. He's been awesome this year, except when he faced Toronto. So, I don't know. It's not a good place for any lefty there, and Donaldson can do a lot. I had Arenado as well. I have, do you like Matt Duffy getting Steven Matz, a few Giants, and that's righty on lefty for him. I like some of those Giants against lefties. Are you scared away by Steven Matz at all?
I'm not exactly scared by Steven Matz. Duffy's been a little inconsistent this year, and that's got me just slightly worried about him. Also, Citibank Field is tough on righties, not so much on lefties. Helps their power, but it's pull up the park factors here. It's something like it's not too bad on righties. I got it backwards, I think. But yeah, it's it's still a
something to consider.
Friendly park, or at least neutral, and not somewhere where I'm really overeager to target.
Yeah. Rudy, what about you at third base? I have plenty of options. Is anybody there your favorite specifically?
Yeah, well, I mean, the third base I'm not liking much of the bargains. I think, the guy who I'm a little surprised is not priced that higher is Machado. I like his price on DraftKings and FanDuel. He's facing Rodon. I think that's a good matchup for him. I mean, I always like Donaldson. I think his price, depending on the service, is a little high. Two other guys that are known as kind of multi-position plays I don't mind depending on the service is Prado. If you're looking at a Florida stack against Davies at Milwaukee. And another guy who qualifies for shortstop in some leagues is Eduardo Nunez. Bit of a our DFS spot, our tool for DFS, is really liking Nunez today against Fulmer against Detroit. If I see him hitting leadoff, that might be a bit of a nice play at either shortstop or third if you're looking to save money.
Okay, sure. I also had Alex Rodriguez getting Henry Owens, righty on lefty in Fenway. I kind of like Henry Owens, but I'm not that convinced yet, and I could see A-Rod having a game there. Adrian Beltre gets Hector Santiago. Beltre likes lefties. I like Santiago okay too, but I that's a matchup that's good for him. And then the last two I had are Kyle Seager gets Chris Medlin. I wish Chris Medlin were still awesome, but haven't really seen it lately. And I like Kyle Seager. Kyle Seager has been slow to start the year, but a lot of the peripherals suggest he's going to be just fine. I'm not worried about Kyle Seager yet. So if you like him, it's tough to pick against the Royals. We've talked about how the bullpen can be pretty good, and that one's one to be worried about. So Kyle Seager's not a slam dunk, but I think that's fine. And then any of the Dodgers you want to pick about against Cesar Vargas, I think Justin Turner's going to be just fine. So I think third base is a day of options, but I agree that I might be going expensive, whether it's Machado or Donaldson or even Arenado getting Robbie Ray. I'm fine with that. Did either of you have any third baseman we got to get to before we move on? And nobody left behind?
I'll mention Eugenio Suarez just because we always do.
Yes.
Game is in Pittsburgh, so it's not ideal, but I don't mind trying to grab him against Juan Nicasio. Just a fastball thrower, I think he can get to him.
Yeah. Rudy, we did at Fangraphs, we did some bold predictions before the year, like a lot of places do, and one of mine was that Eugenio Suarez will have more homers than Carlos Correa, which I felt bad about right as I hit enter. I was like, oh, this might be bad. And so far, I believe last I checked, it's 5-3 because I do love Eugenio Suarez. I don't look like a total dummy yet. It still makes me nervous. But are you a Eugenio Suarez guy at all?
I liked his eligibility coming into the season. He screened regression target going into the year, but so far so good. I mean, I'll give him a thumbs up. I think he's ownable in all leagues.
Yeah.
And it just depends on the day. I mean, if I could avoid hitters going into Pittsburgh, I do.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you need a really good advantage. I could see, like, if it was John Neese pitching or Jeff Locke pitching, I'd like Suarez a bit more today.
Sure. Yeah, I tend to go with him against lefties, and Pittsburgh is a little bit tough. All right, so he's eligible at shortstop, maybe not in DFS, but in a lot of traditional ones, which is kind of why I like him. We're going to talk about shortstop. Shortstop was even tougher than second base for me. It's been a real tricky position all year. Rudy, what did you come up with at shortstop that you like?
So it's going to sound like, definitely on the young shortstops. I like Seager. I mean, you had mentioned Vargas against San Diego at LA isn't a great start. So I like Seager. Really like Lindor. At Philadelphia against Morgan. Lindor had been a lot better from the right side versus left side this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I like the Lindor play, and he's coming at a pretty cheap price. And then, the third kind of he's got Chatwood at home. The Colorado starters haven't actually been as atrocious as usual, but I can see Arizona putting up some runs today. And so, getting the leadoff guy wouldn't be too bad. One guy I considered, but kind of mild on, is Villar. At home against Connelly. He's got he's a switch hitter, so he doesn't have necessarily the platoon advantage. The one thing worth noting is it's hard to steal against lefties. So there's always that difficulty of choosing a guy who's, going to deliver a decent amount of his value with a potential stolen base, taking a guy like him against a lefty. It's the same issue I have sometimes with Rajai Davis.
Yeah. I agree. Or even Elvis Andrus, if you're ever an Elvis Andrus person. Sometimes it's like, oh, they hit lefties. What are they going to run against the lefty? And I agree, because I really like Jonathan Villar. That's one of my, matchup for me at shortstop. But might not run against Conley as much. That's true. He's been hitting lefties a lot this year, but that's, it's pretty small sample size for him. But it's switch hitter, and that's something. It's a skill I do believe he has. But I agree that that's kind of tough for the runners that hit lefties. Brad, who do you have at shortstop?
You could start with the Chris Carter of shortstop, Trevor Story. His price has fallen back out of the stratosphere after his deep strikeout slump. But he still has the power. He's got a lefty today. It's still a good park for power, too. Chase Field, one of the better locations, especially early in the year when the games are still a little cool on most stadiums. I think that the Rockies could definitely go off against Robbie Ray today. I also think Robbie Ray could have a really good game. He's going to be one of the higher risk reward type pitchers today. And so there's risk reward for Trevor Story as well.
Yeah, I like that. You guys covered the ones I had, really. I had Francisco Lindor, I had Jonathan VR, I had Corey Seager, and I had Trevor Story. Mm-hmm. It's not a ton of options for such a big slate, but I think it's 4 solid ones. I think it's the range, and I think that, between those 4, you can probably find somebody you like and at least chin up a bit. Did either of you have any shortstops that we didn't mention that you're going to get out there? Maybe add to that pool a little bit.
We might as well mention Carlos Correia. Simply, he's very talented. He's priced comparably to Seager on DraftKings and Story on FanDuel. So if you're not buying our recommendations for those guys, you can get Correia at the same price.
Yeah, he gets Sean Manaea, who we just don't know that much about yet.
Right.
It would not shock anybody if he had that good game. It's not run out and grab him, but if you want to go with him, I don't think you'd be crazy in any way. Rudy, do you have any other shortstops?
No. I mean, I looked at Correia. I can see Correia as part of a stack against Manaea because I just think, I like him a lot, but man, Houston is like the worst matchup. Maybe pitching at Boston would be worse, but I mean, Altuve, Springer, Correia. Even like Gaddis, I mean, that's just not a lineup I want to face as a lefty. I mean, you're not going to get. There's no bargains on that. Maybe Gaddis, which I think he's got like catcher eligible in one of the leagues, one of the sites. That might not. If you're going to do it, I would do it as part of there. Otherwise, I don't know on Correia. I'm probably going to go a little cheaper and get Lindor.
Yeah, that I agree. There are a lot of those Astros guys that hit lefties, but who knows? These new guys for DFS for me are often just stayaways, where I think there's points to be had there, maybe, but I don't know. So, all right, let's move on to outfield. There's always a ton of outfield options. On Thursday, Matt really liked Mark Trumbo getting John Danks, which I suppose seemed obvious, but then he hit that home run, and it just seemed inevitable. I agree there. And so now Trumbo gets a lefty again, but it's Carlos Rodon. It's not nearly as much of the slam dunk that facing John Danks is, but I'm still interested. I still think Trumbo's hitting lefties well, and I still think Rodon is hittable at times. There's a lot of upside there, but I think they do fine. Opposite side of that for me, Adam Eaton. The Red Sox or the White Sox did get halted finally on Thursday, but I think Eaton's going to be fine, and I'm still not worried about Mike Wright at all. I think that the White Sox guys can hit him. I don't think if you're going in the outfield, you want Adam Eaton. I don't think anybody is that inspired by Melky Cabrera or anybody else there. Adam Eaton should do fine. And then, Rudy, you mentioned Rajai Davis getting a lefty. He gets Adam Morgan, and after that really slow start to the year, he's picked it up. He's doing fine. It's a part-time player, but you'd think they use him against a lefty here. Hopefully he can run against Adam Morgan, but either way, against the lefty is where you want him. I just wrote Pirates outfield against Dan Straley. Pick one. We do this a lot. One of the platoon advantage will be Gregory Polanco, but it's not like I don't think Marte and McCutchen can't do fine against Straley. And again, when you pick the Reds, you pick probably half the game for that bullpen too, and that's about as juicy as a good starter matchup. I like that. That's the top of mine. We got plenty to go. We're gonna rotate. Rudy, who do you like at outfield that I haven't listed?
Okay. Well, I like. I like Miami guys today. So I think both Ozuna and Yelich come at solid prices. Yelich is, looks like goes obviously more expensive, but I think at Milwaukee against Davies, I think that there's potential for a route there. So like one of those two guys, depending on how much salary you have to play with. I mean, Stanton, is quite expensive, but I could see that if you saved enough money, even going for Stanton. I like Peralta facing Chatwood at home,
Sure.
So in Arizona. I like Reddick. I think he's just, he's a lock at number 3. He's got the platoon advantage. I feel like Reddick's been underpriced from, in all formats all year. Just, I think, a solid hitter. Two other plays, I'd say the other Chris Davis seems to be heating up. Kind of like him at home. He doesn't get the platoon advantage today, but I like him for power potential against Fires.
Sure.
And then one that cannot be explained by any, if you believe in momentum, you definitely don't want this pick, but Justin Upton, facing Hughes, it feels like, I feel like Justin Upton takes off months. Like you go back every year, he has 3 good months, 3 bad months. I'm thinking maybe May starts early.
Right. And Phil Hughes is not that intimidating, or the
Nope.
Twins bullpen, So, no, I'm definitely fine with that. And I agree with Stanton just in terms of if you can afford it, great. He's on fire right now. I don't know how much we buy into hot streaks or the cold streaks, but he's clearly healthy. He's clearly okay, and he keeps hitting them pretty hard like he does. So, yeah, any of those Marlins outfielders sound good to me, depending on where the price point fits you. Brad, where do you think you're going in the outfield?
Yeah, so while we run through a lot of options today, I'll just bounce over a few of them. I like Mike Trout and Cole Calhoun today. I think that's a pretty good matchup for them against Colby Lewis. I'm liking, you mentioned Justin Upton, who's very cheap on FanDuel, I think 2,600. His teammate J.D. Martinez isn't bad either at 3,200. I think that's definitely too cheap. And he's not even cold. Like, Justin Upton's cold, but J.D. Martinez is hitting fine, doing J.D. Martinez things. He's batting second most days. Definitely a guy that I'd be looking to use against Phil Hughes. I think he's just strike throwers in general. I think good matchup for J.D. Martinez. Also liking Brewers, specifically Domingo Santana at 2,600 on FanDuel, but also Ryan Braun, another good one if you have money for him. Last guy I jotted down, Yasiel Puig, another guy who's just kind of a little disrespected by FanDuel a bit at 3,100. I think that's just a bit low for him price-wise.
I like all those for sure. I'm definitely in on lefty crusher Domingo Santana and Ryan Braun and Conley. I like Adam Conley. I just don't think it's a good matchup for him, And I don't think Brewers are murderers row, but there are just a lot of options in that Brewers lineup to hit lefties that I like. I also had the Mets outfield getting Jake Peavy. If you're willing to pick against him, that whole outfield's hitting. Granderson and Conforto and Cespedes. I'm fine with any of them getting Peavy. Those would be good. I had Ryan Rayburn getting Robbie Ray. It's away from Coors, but he gets in the lineup against lefties. I think Arizona's 80% as good as Coors, 70%. Coors is the extreme, but again, I feel like Arizona's the only other place where you'd be like, you know what, that's okay. And I like Ryan Rayburn getting a lefty. The only other stack I had that, again, is interesting, I brought up Will Myers earlier, but do you guys trust Matt Kemp against Alex Wood, righty and lefty is good? Or if you want to get really crazy, Melvin Upton Jr. is looking okay, and not hitting lefties yet this year, but has historically hit lefties. Are you considering Melvin Upton either in DFS against Alex Wood or just in general in your fantasy leagues? Obviously not a standard league, but can he hit enough to make his power and speed worth it? Rudy, are you in on Melvin at all?
No, not really. I do feel I mean, and this is another one where you've got a lefty pitcher, so you get I'd bet on Upton's speed right now before the power in the bat. Would rather him against a righty, even though it's against the platoon advantage, just because it's just too tough stealing against a lefty.
Sure. We got a comment in our chat. Richie also asked Conforto against PV, which I brought up. Do you have a favorite Mets outfielder, Brad? Is it Conforto's just been hitting like crazy?
It goes back and forth based on the day. Conforto's hitting well. Got Granderson leading off. Yoenis, when he's healthy, is very good. Any of those guys on a given day could be top option.
Yeah, but I don't have any hesitations about any of them, including Conforto. He has the most question marks because he's youngest, but he's been great. Yeah, he's going to do just fine. It's platoon advantage for him against PV. I say totally thumbs up on whichever one fits your price point.
Yeah.
I say go nuts.
Right, and I'd say, yeah, Conforto seems criminally cheap on DraftKings compared to Granderson and Cespedes. He's at 3,500. The other guys are at 43 and 45.
Yeah, that price doesn't make sense.
Yeah, and he's a three. He's hitting third. Yeah, I think. I mean, on DraftKings, Conforto is definitely the bet. Although, yeah, I mean, Granderson is tempting hitting leadoff.
Conforto's hitting 338 with a 1,044 OPS so far this year. Kind of quiet, only 3 home runs, but he has 9 doubles already. He only had 14 last year. I mean, only in like a third of a season, but he's 23 and he looks just fine. So yeah, he's quietly doing great. You know, that lineup can hit for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's just a shame something bad's going to happen to him in about 2 years, because that's just anytime there's hope in Netville, something bad's going to happen.
Yeah. Once he signs his extension, whatever it is.
Yeah. So far so good right now.
Yeah, or Sanchez got Boris.
Yeah. It's weird to go that the New York player is underrated, you know, maybe because Neil Walker's stealing all the attention over there, and of course Yoenis Cespedes, but Michael Conforto pretty quietly has been awesome. I think thumbs up all around from all of us. Any outfielders you guys feel like we need to get to before we get into the pitching side of things? Ready to move on.
Yeah, I think we can move on.
All right. So pitching it's fun. I like having a lot more options at pitching, and that's where these Friday matchups are kind of fun. A lot of places to go. I don't feel like I'm stuck with anything. Sean Manaea, I think we agreed, is interesting, but the matchup is just too questionable against Houston. If you're feeling crazy, if you're feeling lucky, and if you want to just take a shot in the dark, maybe on a cheaper for fun stack, go nuts. But I don't think we can really endorse this matchup. I'm more interested in Michael Fulmer getting the Twins because I still can't get over this. It was last weekend. The Twins struck out 15 times against Tanner Roark, and that taste is going to be in my mouth for the next couple months where I'm just like, Twins matchup. Like, they have the potential to just give away points. Rudy, are you in on Michael Fulmer against the Twins, either because it's the Twins or do you like Michael Fulmer much?
I don't have a good read on Fulmer. I can tell you that our DFS bot doesn't like him today. I think some of that it's definitely not because of fear of the Twins. I think if it was a home start, I'd feel better. I mean, one of the more reliable things is that you go on the road, your K rate goes down, your walk rate goes up. So it's just tougher to have success on the road. So that would probably be the main reason. If it was home, it would be. I wouldn't mind the play as kind of a gamble. And I agree with you on Manaea. That's just yeah. I mean, I think the best thing you could say there is that the K upside against the Astros. They're not afraid to strike out. But yeah, that would be probably a GPP contrarian play.
Right.
Only.
If he comes out and has a good day, I won't be blown away, but I'm not going to be the one trying it out. The other really controversial, or at least tricky pick for me on Friday is Drew Smyly. Drew Smyly has 33 strikeouts to 5 walks. He's only allowed 1 run in his past 2 starts. He's really talented. He's at home. I wish I had him in more fantasy leagues. I love Drew Smyly, but the only bad outing he's had so far is at home against Toronto. It was his first start of the year. He led 5 runs, and he's at home against Toronto again. It's probably the number one bad matchup for lefties. Does the matchup scare you away from his talent, Brad? You got to stay away from Drew Smyly?
I've been staring this one down all morning. It's a tough one, because his price tag isn't actually insane on FanDuel. DraftKings, absolutely, I'm not touching him. He's 10,400 there. It's just not worth paying for that to face the Blue Jays. DraftKings is 8,700, and I think that's appropriately priced for the matchup. And you're looking at a high ceiling today still. He's a very good pitcher. As you mentioned, controls the zone well, good command of a good repertoire. Can go deeper into a game than a lot of the other guys out there today. And yeah, there's definitely a ceiling here. The issues, there's 2 of them. Blue Jays lineup, as we mentioned. Also, the Rays lineup. Not terribly confident that they'll get to Aaron Sanchez. They're so aggressive, and Sanchez's issue is command. You're going to bail them out with the aggression that they have. So we'll see how that matchup goes. But a little hard to see Smyly getting the win, and also just the matchup's tough.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up Aaron Sanchez too. He's been pretty darn good this year. It's another guy I wish I had more formats. I liked him as a flyer for sure. He's going to Tampa Bay. It's a good matchup for him for sure. He led 6 runs his last time out against Oakland, which is a little bit concerning, and I think Sanchez might have his growing pains this year from time to time.
Oh, yeah.
But I like him in general. Rudy, do you like Aaron Sanchez, and do you like him in Tampa Bay for Friday?
I mean, I definitely like him. You know, he's definitely on that flyer list for this year. You know, surprising given his stuff how, mercurial he is.
Mm-hmm.
Again, young pitcher on the road, I tend to shy away. If it was going to be anywhere in the AL, obviously Tampa is the safest place. This is a really tough pitching slate. You know, there's a lot of options, but I mean, I'm looking at it, I don't see any premium option worth it today.
Yeah, I agree.
So you start there and then say, yeah, I mean, like, what's your poison? I got 3 guys. So I think Aaron Sanchez, I couldn't fault the play, especially if you're doing DraftKings with 2 pitchers. I mean, the 3 I got, and I'm not going to say this with much confidence, is Alex Wood, Robbie Ray, and Nicasio. All 3 are at home. I think all 3 are facing below average park neutral teams. In Wood's facing San Diego, Robbie Ray's got Colorado outside Coors, and Nicasio's got Cincinnati. I like all 3. I mean, I've got them all in at least one league for Roto. No doubt, though, you're dealing with probably low floor and not the highest of ceilings, particularly with Alex Wood.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm looking at this, I like to look at, for hitters and pitchers, but especially pitchers, I like to look at my point projection and my dollar per point projection. And I got Wood and Ray at number 6 and 7 today. And actually, one of those is Lester, who you can't even play. Smyly, actually, I like on the projection side. Probably don't have the stones to play him against Toronto. It is at Tampa. It is home. So I could kind of get behind the Smyly play, but would probably go cheap here on some combination of Wood, Ray, and Nicasio.
Yeah. You could tell me just about any pitching line for what Drew Smyly does tonight, and I'd believe you. Like, if he throws 7 shutout with 10 strikeouts, I'd be like, yeah, totally. Like, good work. But if you're like, oh, yeah, I got blown up and, like, allowed 6 runs and left in the 3rd inning, I'd be like, sure. Like, yeah, I believe that, too. They can do a lot. It's interesting, and I agree. It makes it hard to trust them. It depends on how you play DFS and how many stacks you do or how many different games you want to play. But we're not saying stay away. We're just saying there's not a lot of confidence. But there's definitely undeniable upside. He's good. I have Corey Kluber going to Philadelphia because why not? I don't think Philadelphia is that bad, but I think that you can definitely match up against them. It's not a great park bet. I think Corey Kluber is fine. I like Masahiro Tanaka as a pitcher. It continues doing well, but Boston's also a tough matchup. It's not as extreme as Drew Smyly getting the Blue Jays for me, but I could see a lot of outcomes there. But plenty of them are good. I think Tanaka is going to be okay. And then Steven Strasburg gets the Cardinals. I don't think the Cardinals are that great. I think they're good, not great. But Steven Strasburg gets those strikeouts, and if you want to go with him as a points workhorse, that'd be fine. The only quote-unquote ace that I'm staying away from, Felix Hernandez gets the Royals, and the Royals are typically a bad matchup, and he's had such problems this year. It hasn't quite shown up in his ERA, but a lot of people are worried about the velocity, a lot of people are worried about the control. I hope he's okay. I think he definitely could be okay, but right now I can't trust Felix against the Royals. Would either of you consider that, or I assume that you're also a little bit worried about Felix. Brad, what about you?
Yeah, I have my share of concerns, just because you don't like seeing guys lose velocity. And I didn't look into how he did his last start, so maybe there's been some changes since the first few. What I was seeing early in the season, a guy who still very talented, still getting a lot of movement on his pitches, and has a really good idea of how to pitch. But he was full effort trying to get through some of those lineups that weren't even very good.
Yeah.
If he's making any kind of mistakes often in a game, could turn into a disaster.
Last time he got the Angels, and it's 2 home runs. I believe it was home run to Mike Trout, which is okay. Mike Trout hits him hard, and then a home run to Cliff Pennington, which I don't know what you do with that. 2 strikeouts, 4 strikeouts, 2 walks, 7 innings, 3 runs. Like, okay, like he was all right, but I want to see more from him, and I legitimately just hope he's good because I love Felix. It would be sad to see him start declining, but the Royals are just a tough matchup. But I can't go near Felix. Rudy
just don't have. Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, I don't think. If there was a team I wouldn't want to face, I mean, the Royals just don't strike out. So you already have some K concerns with Felix Hernandez. So I just don't see a high ceiling there. I'd rather gamble on Strasburg because, like he could come out of that with a 10K game. I wouldn't be surprised. So even though he's on the road, I'd rather gamble. If I'm gonna go expensive, gamble on Strasburg. Kluber's, he's my number 1 point projection for the day, driven by Ks. But he's not cheap.
Yeah.
I think, and I said, I deduct a decent amount for road starts. And unfortunately with Kluber is that, he's kind of like, he's got a little bit of Pineda in him. Because when he's kind of a frustrating own. If you don't watch the game and you just look at the K number, it's usually good. But he's had some bad innings this year. And Philadelphia is not that bad.
Yeah.
I mean they've been so bad the last year or two, but Odubel Herrera, Franco, even Howard every once in a while could hit a ball.
Sure.
Yeah, I feel like if I had to guess it, I'm looking at maybe he goes 7 innings, gives up 2 to 3 runs, gives up 2 homers, and K's like 8. I think I'd rather gamble on the cheaper plays and maybe get a Stanton at Milwaukee.
Sure. Well, we also run a contest here at the podcast, especially Matt and I. Every day we pick streamers under 50% owned in Yahoo leagues, and today was kind of a tough day for that. I ended up going with Mike Fiers. I'm hoping to keep the ball in the park. I'm really picking against the A's because we named some A's, but we didn't name that many. As long as Reddick and Vogt don't take him deep, I feel okay about Fiers there. Hopefully rebounding a little bit. I don't feel great about it. Matt went with Adam Connelly, who again I like as a pitcher, but just not a good matchup for him in Milwaukee. But it was kind of a tough day for guys under 50% owned, which is our artificial benchmark. But yeah, is there any other pitchers for you guys that we feel like we didn't mention? I mean, Alex Wood, I want to see him rebound, but a lefty against San Diego could be a little bit problematic.
One guy I'm interested in is Hector Santiago.
Okay.
Just mostly on the improved stuff this year. Fastball velocity's up over 2 miles per hour. The matchup against the Rangers, not terribly great for him. Price point is, though, pretty good still. So kind of like with Drew Smyly, you're looking at a situation where matchup's not good, but the price kind of reflects that, and so he's at fair value. He should neutralize Prince Fielder, who's been cold in general, and then Nomar Mazar doesn't always start against lefties. So that's 2 of their better hitters out of the lineup right there. And then you got to worry about Adrian Beltre more.
Yeah, that's the only Rangers player we listed, and I like the matchup for Beltre. That's about it. I like Hector Santiago. I think that's definitely underrated. Rudy, do you have anybody else at pitcher that you feel like we need to get out there?
I mean, I'd go Robbie Ray.
You like Robbie Ray getting the course hangover?
Yeah, yeah, no, and he's got. I mean, I think that the toughest thing with an Alex Wood is that his ceiling is just low. I mean, I'm not convinced that he's going to get you more than like your like your floor of 5Ks. But when Robbie Ray's on, and I think it seems to be a trend with the Arizona pitchers because Robbie De La Rosa yesterday had one of those 9, crazy good starts that teases. I feel like Robbie Ray's a better version of De La Rosa.
Sure.
And this is their first, and Colorado's this is the hangover day. So I mean, I'd go Ray.
I like that. I like that in terms of, if you're thinking about a guy that can have a lot of different results, kind of like Drew Smyly. I think Robbie Ray's that. Not quite the same ceiling, but the same kind of potential in both directions. And if you want to get crazy with the stack, save a lot of money and go with Robbie Ray and have the same kind of roll of the dice. It's not as good, but it's like the cheaper version of this matchup for me.
Yeah.
And just volatility. And I like that.
Yeah, and I'm still good on Nicasio. I'm pretty sure he's been 50% owned as well.
Yeah.
I think the key is with a guy, it's like he's looked bad on his road starts. He's looked good on his home starts. I do believe in Searage. And not totally convinced on Cincinnati's lineup. I think he has a chance at coming in with a nice start across the board.
Sure. All right. Brad, you got anybody else we got to mention for Friday?
I think that about covers it for me.
Yeah, we've done a long rundown of all 14 matchups for sure. I asked you guys before we recorded just to take a quick peek at the weekend. We don't want to ignore the weekend entirely. Any matchups you're excited about? On Saturday, Matt and I are both picking, at least for our contest, J.A. Happ going to Tampa Bay. I think he'll do fine there. The Rays have been cold, and he's been just fine for the Blue Jays. It's a little bit underrated, but the matchups I like, we also on the show we love Chase Anderson, and he gets the Marlins, and that could be just fine. But Brad, do you have anything on this Chris Davinsky character starting for the Astros, getting Oakland?
I don't have a lot on him, to be honest. He's someone who I didn't even recognize his name when I saw him come up on the probable starters list. I just wasn't expecting to see him there.
Yeah.
And so, looked into him a little more. The stuff looks like maybe it would play. Got a phone there. The stuff looks like maybe it would play as a back-end rotation starter. Against the Athletics is definitely an interesting matchup for him. Wouldn't expect more than 5 innings, and so you're going to have a hard time getting a win out of that.
Sure. Did anything else pop up to you on Saturday that you are enticed by, either DFS-wise or just that you want to watch?
Saturday's got a lot of good streaming picks. Ross Stripling against the Padres. You mentioned a few of them. Both sides of Chase Anderson and Wei-Yin Chen in Milwaukee. The only thing not to like about that is the park. Both offenses are kind of meh. Jared Eichhoff against the Indians if he's still under 50.
Yeah.
You mentioned
and Trevor Bauer.
Yeah, there's Trevor Bauer too. I'm a little cooler on, but still a guy who has upside against a team like the Phillies. So that's a lot more options than most days have this time of year.
Yeah. And then, Rudy, what about Saturday for you? Anything stick out to you?
So I'm looking at the Streaminator at guys who are owned in less than 80% of leagues. It's not a great slate of them. I'd probably take Eichhoff. I have him as a $7 play, which is generally about a good 12-team stream, but he's owned in most competitive leagues. Bauer, I don't trust he's going to go too far in the game. He's a bit of a wild card. Stripling I'd have kind of close. I think anytime you get a guy home in LA, it's just, it's a pretty safe play. The other two guys that I have like even close would be like a Porcello at home against the Yankees. Might have some K potential there, and the Pineda's pitching, so God knows what that's going to look like. And then I seem to keep thinking that Wade Miley's going to resurrect himself. Something to watch out for. Matchup against Kansas City is not great. I think the one solace there is that a lot of the bats in KC are lefty that scare you. You have Hosmer, Gordon, Moustakis.
Yeah.
So that might play a role, but I mean the K potential's bad. And then and I don't think Sunday's terribly better. But I think the highlight, if he's still available in your league, is if you want to be bold and try Rich Hill, and hope that he could best the righty stack of Houston.
We've talked about Rich Hill a lot on this podcast.
Another high risk, high reward.
Yeah,
I'm number one on that bandwagon. I'm right there. After he took down Detroit, we talked about it a lot this week, just in terms of that being a really bad matchup for a lefty. He went in and was great, and I almost feel he's this weird kind of matchup proof where he kind of decides whether he's on or not, and if he's on, like, the matchup doesn't matter that much. I mean, I'm still nervous against Houston and against Blue Jays and stuff, but like, he can do it. If he's on, he's fine, and that's my pick. He's somehow not at 50%. He should be. I think he needs to be owned in all leagues just for the upside. He's that flyer that somebody has to at least take, and so I have him Sunday. Matt has Tom Kohler at Milwaukee, which I think is much more boring. Maybe more safe, but much more boring. But I'm watching every Rich Hill start. Yeah, I'm taking every Rich Hill start, or at least watching it. I want to see what he's doing. I think he's one of the most fun stories this year so far to see. Brad, what are you looking at on Sunday?
I think you guys covered the streaming options. There's very few of them. It's because there's a billion aces going. There's a Bumgarner, Syndergaard start. That's definitely going to be one that I try to watch. There's Clayton Kershaw pitching, Max Scherzer, Chris Sale, David Price is going, and then some second-tier quality aces like Cole Hamels, Denny Salazar. It's a deep, deep day. Carlos Martinez is another one. So, lots of lovely games to watch. Should be some good pitching.
Cool. Yeah, that's a good baseball day for sure. Well, that should about wrap it up for us. Rudy, you got anything else going on over at Razzball or things we can talk about before we get rolling? Again, I'm a long-time reader over there and excited about the Streaminator and whatnot. You guys do a ton of leagues. What else you guys got going on at Razzball?
Yeah, no, we're continually, getting content out there. Tool subscriptions. I mean, you can still get in now, get a season-long pass, and save some dough. The one thing we added to the DFS tools, we do have an optimizer in there, partnered with Lineup Lab, but it's called the Stackinator, and you can look at the top 200 or top 800 actually, 4-bat stacks, 3-bat stacks, 2-bat stacks for things like DraftKings, Yahoo, and Fantasy Draft. So something we added this year, I think, and kind of another way of looking at stacks instead of looking at researching all the individual players is looking at what's the stacks collective dollar per point ratio.
Yeah, like I said, I was looking at it and it was overwhelming, which is a good thing just in terms of options. You guys are using all sorts of DFS sites, all sorts of fantasy sites. There's a lot of stuff in this tool, which is pretty good. And then you guys are covering other sports over there now too, right?
Yeah, we have football, basketball, hockey, and soccer. So we've got that stuff covered. My hat's right now focused. I'm pretty much focused strictly on baseball, but maybe there might be some nice stuff in football and basketball going this year.
Cool. Well, right on. Yeah, that's over at Razzball. Rudy, thanks for joining us. Glad you could be on here. Brad, what else you got going on this weekend?
More of the same. Got the Daily Grind Invitationals every day. Kind of lay back on those on the weekend. I have a lot less attention to focus. But today's is up. It's on DraftKings. It's a 40-user one. I'm sure you'll have the link for it to put into the post.
in the Fangraphs post. We didn't talk about it enough during the episode, but definitely if you want to play, with Brad and with other Rotographs readers, that kind of I like that the DFS has an option to play with your friends, which is one of my favorite parts of traditional fantasy. And it can be kind of hard playing against faceless people. So trying to bring the community back in DFS a little bit. I like that movement lately of doing these games. So you can play against Brad and Rotographs people there. So that link, if you're gonna play DFS anyway, might as well join a contest like that.
Yeah,
So,
and they're just $2. Not trying to make it a big money making endeavor. It's more for fun, and I'm keeping a leaderboard up on my daily column, the Daily Grind.
Oh, that's awesome.
So keeping track of who's winning and assigning points and dollar values and all that. You get some bragging rights over to season 2 if you're doing well.
For $2, I want to play Drew Smyly and/or Robbie Ray and just see how it goes. Because if they hit, that's pretty fun. For $2, I'm all about taking that risk. So that's pretty cool. All right, well that should about do it for us. Rudy is on Twitter at Rudy Gamble. Brad's on Twitter at BaseballAteam. I'm on Twitter at HigginsFOS. Thanks, guys, for watching. And again, thanks to both of you for joining us. That should about do it for us. I'll be back on Monday with Matt, as always. And other than that, good luck with your stacks, and we'll see you then.